So yes, before we start, so any questions from the previous session? I would like to give a quick recap before we go into this session. Any questions you guys have from the previous session, previous two sessions? So let's do a quick recap, or I'll ask a few questions so that we all can revise that way. So any questions from anybody? So Srinath, were you able to see the first two videos? Viraj?
No, I didn't get a chance.
Okay. Okay. So let's do a quick recap. So I'll ask folks from the room. So yes. So let's understand. So who are we? Are we our body or mind or our soul? So let's start from Nikita. What's your understanding?
So
Yeah. So who are we? Are we a body or mind or soul?
so we are soul according to Bhagavad Gita.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why are we not our body and why can't we be our mind?
Because body we just here for, if we die then the body is not with us and the mind is always changing.
Okay. So the body is temporary,
Yeah.
and even in this birth, we take different bodies when we were 10 years old, when we were 20 years old, when we were 30 years old. So the body keeps changing. So we cannot be our body. So what Bhagavad Gita Krishna says is the body is just like a dress given by Krishna for a specific amount of time. So we need to fulfill our purpose, and then if we are not fulfilling our purpose, then after this specific amount of time, this birth, the soul takes on to another body. Okay, so that's the concept of reincarnation. And what form of body you get, it depends on the karma that you have accumulated from your activities. Okay, so what is karma? The reactions that you have accumulated based on whatever actions you have done in this particular lifetime or all the previous lifetimes. So why we can't be our mind? Because our mind also keeps changing. So we all give this explanation or reason when we talk to somebody else, I changed my mind. So your mind also cannot be at the same state always. So your mind also keeps changing. So your body is your gross body, which you can see it is made of 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And your mind is your subtle body. So today we are going to understand more about our mind. Okay. So the first session we saw what is our identity. Okay. So whoever is born in this world, you need to understand who you are, your identity. And then we all do some activities. We engage with nature, prakriti, and the actions are karma. And we are bound by time, kala, and number 5, and we are all controlled by Ishvara, God, controller. So these are the 5 topics of Bhagavad Gita, which we saw in the first session, and we briefly touched on all the 5 topics. So throughout Bhagavad Gita, all these 5 topics will be explained a lot in detail. Okay. So then in the second session, what we saw is what are Vedic scriptures. Okay, so there are 6 different school of philosophies, which is called a school of thoughts. And then Vedanta, the conclusion of knowledge. Veda means knowledge, right? So Veda, the word science is derived from the Latin word sentia, which means called as book of knowledge. So Vedas is axiomatic and Vedas is the source of truth. So Vedanta is the conclusion of all knowledge. That's the Vedanta philosophy. So under Vedanta, we have three sources of knowledge. So the first ones are called as Shrutis, which we do not have any author. It's eternal. These are considered to be the sound incarnations of Krishna. And then we have Smritis. Smritis, they do have authors. They are Shrutis told in a story format so that we can understand the concepts much, much easier. So Shrutis are the four Vedas and the Upanishads. And Smritis are Mahabharata, Ramayana, which has an author. They all have all the contents of Shrutis. And then we have the third source of knowledge, which is called as Nyaya, which is work involving logic to understand the Shrutis. So Shrutis are not easily understandable. So it has to be revealed to people who are pure at heart, who are pure at soul, whose mind has been purified completely. So all the acharyas who have purified their mind and who have acting at the level of their soul and not from the level of their mind, they have given commentaries of the Shrutis. So they are called as Nyaya Prasthan. Say, for example, the Vedanta Sutra, the commentary on the Vedas. So that is called as Nyaya. Okay, so these are the three sources of knowledge from the Vedanta philosophy. So Bhagavad Gita is a conversation, it's a 45-minute conversation spoken by Krishna to Arjuna during the Mahabharata in the Battle of Kurukshetra. And so Bhagavad Gita, technically, it comes from Krishna himself. So it is considered to be a Shruti inside a Smriti, right? Because it's happening inside Mahabharata. And we also saw how do we understand Vedas, right? It's very, very important. We cannot understand just by seeing because our eyes are imperfect. So when you stand in front of a railway track, you see the railway track converging at some point in time with your eyes. But in reality, a railway track never converges. So your eyes are imperfect. And similarly, experiments. So modern science has failed miserably. So humans have a lot of imperfections. So how can we saw a few examples also why we cannot trust the modern science. So if humans are made of imperfections, how can an instrument created by humans become so perfect? So that will also not give you a conclusive evidence. So you cannot measure beyond this in one universe. There are like multiple universes. That's what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. You're just belonging to one single universe. So how to understand scriptures? So Krishna has given the knowledge of scriptures. We saw what are the four sampradayas. So when we are lost in life, like in basically on road, we use GPS, right? So similarly, when we want to understand our life, we need to follow the Guru Parampara system. So there are bona fide sources of knowledge, and the knowledge comes in like disciplic succession from various gurus. So that is, so hearing from an authorized source, it is the most efficient way to understand scriptures. So there are different, Krishna has given this knowledge of Vaishnavism. So that is the conclusion of the topmost philosophy of Vedanta. So Vaishnavism is worship of Vishnu or Krishna. So Krishna has given this knowledge of Vedas in four authorized sampradayas. So first one, he has given this knowledge to Brahma, and then he has given this knowledge to Lakshmi. So Brahma is called as Brahma, so Brahma Madhva Sampradaya, because Madhva is the Acharya, few thousand years back, who has propounded this philosophy of Brahma Madhva Sampradaya. And then Krishna also gave this knowledge to Lakshmi, so which is called as Sri Sampradaya, which is also called as Ramanuja Sampradaya, because Ramanuja was the Acharya who spread that few thousand years back. And then it was given to Shiva, which is called as Rudra Sampradaya. Shiva is a great devotee of Vishnu. And then Vishnu Swami was the Acharya. And then it was given to the four Kumaras. They are the sons of Brahmas. It is called as Kumara Sampradaya. And Nimbarka is the Acharya who has propounded. So these are the four authorized Sampradaya. And what we say as Krishna consciousness is from Brahma Madhva Sampradaya. It's called as Gaudiya Vaishnavism because the Acharya who propounded this Sampradaya few hundreds of years back in 1500s was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So it's also called as Chaitanya philosophy. Okay, so the philosophy is strictly based on Krishna's instructions in the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so any of these four sampradayas or any of the Vedic scriptures, what we need to understand is it should not deviate from Krishna's instructions in Bhagavad Gita. So then also we saw what is the difference between philosophy and religion. So any philosophy you take, all the four sampradayas, or even Gaudiya Vaishnavism, or even Christianity or Islam. So any of this philosophy should answer 5 questions. So what are these 5 questions? So who can tell me what are these 5 questions which we discussed in the previous class? Any philosophy should answer these 5 questions. So yes, who can give me that? The first
I
one.
think it
What
should
is the soul?
answer how we live, how we die, what
Mhm.
happens after death,
Mhm.
and I've forgotten the rest.
Okay. So any philosophy should give an explanation of your identity, the nature of the soul, who you are. And then it should say who is Paramatma, who is God. Okay. That's the second one. And the third, what is the means to attain God, this body, and how we take the process of reincarnation. That's number 3. And number 4, what are the obstacles that we face during the process? Right? The obstacles are nothing but karma. And number 5, what do we do after attaining God? So any philosophy you take, whether it is 100% complete or not, we are not here to deep study that. But any philosophy should answer these 5 questions. So when number 2 changes, who is God, then the religion changes. So this also we discussed. So when the 5 parameters changes, a combination of 5 parameters is called as philosophy. And when number 2 changes, it's called as religion. So instead of if you put Vishnu, it's Vaishnavism. If you put Shiva, it's Shaivism. If you put the 4 Kumaras, it is called as Kaumara. If you put Jesus, it is called as Catholicism. If you put Prophet Muhammad, it's called as Islam. Okay, so any religion which does not answer these 5 questions, it is not very bona fide. So what we also saw is what is called lie. A lie which is told strongly, it becomes so-called truth. And when the so-called truth is believed by so many people, it becomes a culture. And when this culture moves to the next generation, when it's passed on, it becomes a tradition. So any religion where you don't get these 5 answers, if it is not convincing, so you need to go back and see what is the tradition, what exactly we are following. So you always need to challenge. Okay, that's called as a spiritual disruption. You challenge and then you consult. Okay, so you can always consult bona fide scriptures, or you can always consult people who have studied the scriptures so that they can explain you in a better way. So that is the difference between philosophy and religion. So this is what we saw, and then we saw the concept of reincarnation, and we saw the concept of karma. So like how we change our dress every day, after a certain amount of time, the soul changes its dress, it takes on a different body. And depending on what you get the different body is completely based on what activities you do with this current body. So karma is like a bank account. You have debit and you have credit. So if you do bad activities, your credit increases. And if you do good activities, your debit increases. So depending on your debit and credit offset, you get a different body. So how to break the cycle of birth and death? It is by practicing Bhakti Yoga. So that's what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. So the first 6 chapters talks about your identity, who you are, and your karma, and what are you doing in this world, how to perform these activities. And the next 6 chapters talks about Bhakti Yoga in detail. So especially when you take a sandwich, the best part of the sandwich, right? Your patty or any of your stuffing, it's kept in between. And on top and bottom, you have the bread. So similarly, Krishna kept the best part of Bhagavad Gita in between chapter 7 to 12, the middle 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita. And the first 6 chapters talks about who you are, the identity, what is mind. And then the next 6 chapters talks about how to get out of this cycle of birth and death. And the final 6 chapters, the bottom of the sandwich, it talks about, okay, now that you understood the middle 6 chapters, now how are you going to engage this world and perform your activities by being Krishna conscious, by the principle of Bhakti Yoga. So that is how this Gita sandwich is packed very, very nicely. So today we are going to understand more about our mind. Okay, so we understand what is mind. So mind can make decisions. It can say whether you have to proceed with a particular thing or an activity or you cannot. And depending on what, the mind makes that decision. So we saw the example of 5 horses, right? So you have your hands, legs, eyes, nose, tongue. These are your 5 sense objects. And these sense objects listen only to your mind. Depending on what the mind says, your sense objects acts. And what steers your mind is your intelligence, the level of knowledge that you possess. Okay. And depending on whatever knowledge you have, you need to steer your senses in the right direction. Okay. And this body is like a chariot. So you have 5 horses, you have the rope, which is your mind, and the chariot driver is the intelligence, and the passenger is your Atma or the soul, and the chariot is your body. So now if your body has to go in the right direction, if the passenger has to go in the right direction, then it is your responsibilities to steer the body in the right direction. So if your soul has to go in the right direction, direction is out of the cycle of birth and death, right? So if you have to go in the right direction, then you need to be spiritually educated so that the intelligence can steer the mind to take us in the right direction with the help of the horses. Else we will not understand in which direction we are going. So again, coming back to what is mind. So we also discussed the symptoms of soul is growth and consciousness, right? So even when somebody is in coma, we also saw this concept. Even when somebody is in coma, the doctors say that this person still has consciousness, this person still can listen to us. His hairs grow, his nails grow, even when he is in coma for like few decades. So what is consciousness is called state of being aware. That is called as consciousness. So state of being aware about Krishna is called as Krishna consciousness. So your consciousness technically has different compartments. Okay. So this is how your consciousness is structured. So your subtle body is your mind and intelligence, and your gross body is your physical body. So the subtle body has a lot of impressions that are carried from the previous birth. Your subtle body is like a storehouse of impressions. Say, for example, you see something, an impression, a snapshot is being taken, and it is being stored in your mind, in the subtle body, right? So these are the impressions. So depending on whatever impressions that you have accumulated from previous lifetimes, you will be attracting those types of characters in this particular life. So that is, your mind has access to all of these impressions which you have accumulated in the past. Okay. So now, even in this current life, you would have acquired a lot of impressions. So say, for example, like you have listened to some songs during your school or college time, and for the last 10-15 years you haven't been listening to all those songs. So now all of a sudden, after like 10-15 years, if you listen to that song, your mind will start processing all of those impressions. Oh, I used to listen to this song a lot of times during my school or during my college. When I go in the bus, I used to listen this song. And we used to listen to songs during parties. So what type of parties, what type of friends, everything, a flood of thoughts come in your head. So all these are being accessed from your impressions. Okay. So a consciousness has different compartments. So your mind is there here, and you have the intelligence here, and then on this side, you have a lot of impressions. So your intelligence supplies the mind with information based on the impressions that you have acquired. And this is how mind listens. So this all is stored as consciousness. So there are different compartments. So first compartment is your mind, and the second compartment is your intelligence, and the third compartment is a set of impressions. Now say for example, like you are eating a dessert. So the first time when you're eating that dessert, you like the taste, and that leaves an impression in your subconscious. You can call that as your subconscious mind. That's what actually we call as subconscious mind. So when that impression is stored, the next time you see that particular dessert, you know that it's going to be tasty because it has left a good impression. So now your mind tends to act based on that particular impression. So what if we have accumulated all negative impressions because of which we don't want to approach God, or we don't know how to approach God? So this is the fundamental knowledge which Krishna is trying to give us in Bhagavad Gita. So when you sharpen your intelligence with spiritual knowledge, you create positive impressions. That is something which we all have to understand. So when we leave these positive impressions, then your mind starts functioning the way it is meant to function. Now, take an example of a hardware and a software, right? So this body is considered to be a hardware, and your mind is considered to be a software. So if your software has so much of problems, will your hardware work perfectly? If your laptop software Windows has so much problems, will your laptop work perfectly? Similar to your phone or your tablet, whatever it is. So every time the software is being upgraded. So similarly, if you want this passenger, the soul, to go in the right direction, this body is the only means help the soul go in the right direction. And we will have to control this mind with the help of our intelligence. So what will steer us in the right direction is spiritual intelligence, the wisdom or knowledge that Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita. So this is how we bifurcate mind, intelligence, impressions. Yeah, any questions until here before we move on a bit more deeper? So this is just understanding the mind. Okay, so we will see a lot of more examples how to understand what is mind. So any questions until here? So can we have cameras on? So I'll be starting to remove participants who do not have cameras and they have not given me any reasons.
So I have one question.
Yep.
Yeah. So so if, for example, we are suffering through something, we
Mm.
are either financially or physically or mentally or something. So if it is due to some bad deed that we have done earlier, why are, if our mind has access to all these impressions, why
Right.
are we not able to know, due to at least we are, why is that path actually shaded? We are not able to remember to that level of clarity so that we can at least have a course correction or something for today.
Exactly. So that's basically what Krishna says in Gita is he erases all the memories and just leaves the impression, which is actually a blessing in disguise. What if you have done, there is something called as modern science, what people do, something called as past life regression. And trust me, guys, this works. They'll take depending on what level of methodology they use, they can take your mind back 100 years, what type of impressions it has acquired. Because if your sufferings Some, say some people are afraid of water. Some people don't want to go too high above. So all those because you have suffered some examples in the past. Now, what say you have access to all those memories? So whatever you're going through in this life, that memories only are so disturbing. So what, for example, if you have access to what you have done something miserable in the past, how are you going to live with it? You cannot live with whatever you are doing in this particular lifetime. So that's what Krishna says in Gita. It's actually a blessing in disguise so that you can actually put up, leave the past. When we say forget the past, this is what we talk about, right? When I say forget the past for you in this particular lifetime, who can actually forget the past? Not easily people can forget the past. So if all those memories have been given to you, you'll become mad. It'll just matter of few years. You'll become absolutely mad without knowing. I've been such a disgusting person in the past. You don't know what you have done in the past, right? So better to know. Yeah. So does that answer your question?
Yep.
So any other questions? So I see some questions in the chat. So what is spiritual intelligence? So knowledge of scriptures, knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. So that is called as spiritual intelligence. So we discussed this in the previous class. I'll quickly touch on this. So any actions that you do, which takes you one step closer towards God or God realization, those activities are considered to be spiritual in nature. So if your intelligence, so basically is trained with knowledge so that your activities are steered in the right direction, then it is called as spiritual intelligence. So how do we build spiritual intelligence? By reading Bhagavad Gita and other Vedic scriptures. So any other questions so far what we have discussed? Any other questions you guys have on this subject matter? So what exactly we have spoken here. So we saw a few examples on what is mind, how to understand what is mind. We saw what is mind, what is intelligence, and what is impressions, right? So how, if you have the activities you do, if it's leaving a negative impression, then your mind will act according to that particular impression. So now how do we clear this impression? It is not possible to erase this impression. Now say, for example, you have a glass of water, right? And the glass of water has a lot of dirt in it. So now what do you do? The dirt is completely mixed with the water. You cannot sit and, remove all those dirt particles, right? So what do we do at that point in time? So we keep pouring more clean water in that particular glass. So in a dirty water, if you keep pouring a lot of clean water, then eventually the water becomes clean. You'll have one full glass of clean water. So those impressions cannot be wiped out. Rather, you can create more positive impressions. So that is what people do in the concept of mindfulness. They call as positivity. They listen to good things. So to purify your eyes, you see only good things. To purify your ears. So it's basically, if you put garbage inside, only garbage will come outside. If you put good inside, only good will come outside. So you surround yourself with positive people, people who have good vibes, people who do good things, people who are technically in the mode of goodness. So Krishna talked, we saw this mode of 3 modes, right? Good, bad, and ugly. So goodness, it's called as sattvic, and mode of being bad is it's called as being passionate. It's called as rajasic. This is what Bhagavad Gita says. And being in the mode of ignorance, it's called as tamasic. Say, for example, when somebody is shouting at me, I can just smile and ignore. That's called being in the mode of goodness. And when somebody is shouting at me, I can become angry, express my anger. That's called mode of passion. And when somebody is shouting at me, I can go and punch him on his face. That's mode of ignorance. Okay. So what we need to understand is we need to surround ourselves with like-minded people who induce positivity or who creates good impressions. So that's the only way in which you can clean up all these impressions so that your mind comes to a sanity. So how do you cultivate good impressions? You understand scriptural knowledge, you understand Bhagavad Gita, and improve your intelligence so that your mind and intelligence are here, and the material activities are here, and the spiritual activities are here. So you need to psychologically disposition your mind more on the spiritual aspect and not on the material aspect, because the nature of the soul is to derive pleasure. We derive pleasure from all the material substances around us, either with house, money, or alcohol, or drugs, or for man it is women, for women it is man. So we try to run behind all these temporary pleasure, and all these pleasures last only for a certain amount of time. So psychologically, if we disposition our mind towards spirituality or towards God, or try to do only activities that pleases God, which Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita in chapter 7 to 12, then we can clean up all these impressions and purify our mind. So modern science, it says only how to calm your mind, right? Hospital is for treating the body, and the current psychology, it tells you how to calm your mind. There is no solution how to purify your mind. If you want to purify your mind so that you have longer benefits, then you will have to take up some sort of a spiritual commitment. So mantras is the best way to purify your mind. So mantras, it has two syllables, man and tra. Word man means mind, and tra is delivering your mind. So how can you deliver your mind, or how can you purify, is called as mantra. And how do you make your mind steady? By going to temples, by visiting the temple. That's why it's called as mandir. Mind, dhira, it means steady. So temples are meant to purify our mind because it has a lot of positivity, positive vibration. So these are all the knowledge which comes from Vedic wisdom. This is what Krishna is exactly saying in Bhagavad Gita. And we saw how many Vedic texts are there. We really don't have to go beyond Bhagavad Gita to understand this. And we also saw that deeply in our second session. So this is exactly what we are trying to do, is purify your mind. So you need to have a spiritual ambience around you. So you need to be surrounded by good people, surrounded by like-minded people. So that is how first we understand our mind. And this is one of the, basic bare minimum commitment which we must take if we have the intention to purify our mind. Okay, so now how do we do that is a much more deeper process. So say, for example, you can even watch a movie going to movie theaters, or sometimes you can even watch a live show or even watch online. But what gives you the best experience? Doing it live. So that's why the deeper process will be explained in the next class, March 2nd, which will be an in-person session, so that you get maximum out of that and we can give personal attention. And also, in order to equip you on how to actually live a practical spiritual life, we also have a retreat. I've sent the retreat details back in WhatsApp yesterday. So if you have any questions, I think a couple of you guys have already registered for the retreat. So retreat will give you a practical experience. Say, for example, every day night you charge your battery, mobile battery, and the next morning it's on full charge and it runs for a certain amount of time. Similarly, like, we understand that at some point of time we all drained and we all feel tired and we don't look at life at the same way, and sometimes you feel happy and sometimes you feel sad and sometimes you deal with situations correctly. So one thing we need to understand is the 10-90 principle. It comes from the book called the 7 Habits of Success. So what it's mentioned there after a lot of study is, whatever happens to us, it's just 10%. 90% is on how we react to it. If you understand this, 50% of your life will change. And how you react to it comes with the right knowledge, whether you have the material knowledge or the spiritual knowledge. So this will change your life basically. So if you are situated on the spiritual, not on the material level. So on the material level, sometimes you cannot be consistent. Sometimes you can act 100% right, and sometimes you can act only 50% right. Right? But if you're seated on the spiritual level, your reactions, that's what Krishna mentions in Gita, I will free you from all sinful reactions. So you will be situated in a much comfortable state. When all the bad things happen, you would be situated in a platform on a spiritual level where those things don't matter to you. You will just be able to deal with it so easily in your life. That exactly what happens when you actually take up any form of spiritual practice. So only mantras have that power. So say, for example, like a father has a daughter and the daughter spills coffee on his trousers when he has his daughter on his lap. So he can actually like yell at his daughter, which will leave a very bad impression. Or he can just, you know, it will also disturb his mind. And then when he goes to work, he'll carry that same mindset. And then you deal with people in a indifferent, you be indifferent to people. So, but if that father is situated in a platform where he can understand that the daughter is naive, it was an accident, or you don't, if he has positive impressions left in him, then that would not provoke him if he is not tensed with something else from the previous day. So all these things matter on how you deal with it. So your intelligence is what will steer your senses. It will steer your mind to make sure how your senses acts. Say, for example, you have the Mahout who sits on top of the elephant. Whenever the elephant gets angry or gets mad, he just has a very sharp, small, pointed needle with him. He'll just poke the elephant with that. So the elephant will know that, okay, next time, if I behave like that, I'll get a prick. Or when the elephant is going in a wrong direction. So your senses are like mad elephants or uncontrolled elephants. So do you think that the elephant is stronger or the Mahout is stronger, who just has a small needle? Right? So who is stronger? The elephant is actually stronger. So your mind is much stronger. So if you don't have the mind in your control, then you technically don't have the life in your control. So your mind is like a pendulum. It keeps oscillating on the spiritual side. Sometimes 10-15 minutes in a day I'll pray, and then it'll be oscillating on the materials and it remains here for some time. So it keeps oscillating left, right. So the aim is to make it steady, make the oscillation slow, be on the positive side for a longer period of time. So first, stabilize. And only then you can make sure which side you want to oscillate and let the mind not oscillate on its own. So the pendulum should actually be the middle. So you first need to harness your mind, get back your senses in control. That's possible only when you take up any form of spirituality with a faith and belief that whatever taste you're experiencing currently in the material platform, you can experience that on the spiritual platform as well. So how do you get taste? Whether taste comes first or faith comes first. Without faith, how you will practice. So we are all born with faith. So when someone says, I don't have faith, it's actually like being foolish, right? So when your mom says that this is your dad, you have faith in your mom. You don't say that, get me a DNA test and then I'll confirm that if this is my dad, right? So everybody is actually born with faith. So when someone says, I don't have faith, it's basically illogical. So these are the type of education which are modern saints or modern psychologists or modern like philosophers, whatever they say, it becomes accepted. So your mind is like a magnet. It becomes eyes to truth and it becomes fire to lies. So this is the natural characteristics of our mind. So it is always under illusion. it'll be very, very hard for us to accept the truth. So think of this way. So do you think this is the first pandemic which we went through? There was no pandemic back. How did people deal with it? Same things. So what are the lessons learned from that pandemic? Was that implemented here? Do you think we didn't have technology few thousands of years back where Indians, I sent a video on WhatsApp where we had cutting edge temple with amazing precision techniques. The Vastu Shastra gives that information. So of course, if you want to build a building here, I wouldn't suggest go read Vastu Shastra. I would say do civil engineering. But putting that aside, knowledge keeps changing. Knowledge has always existed, right? But Bhagavad Gita always had only 700 verses. It never changed. So then what is eternal? Spiritual knowledge, because we are all spiritual souls. So right now, the mind and intelligence acts as a covering around our soul, which actually influences this body from not performing its activity properly. This is how we have to understand. So when you read scriptures, your mind gets purified. When you implement what you read, your intelligence gets purified. So when you experience it, your consciousness gets purified. So in order to experience it, you need to read and you need to implement. So you already were all born with faith, right? So now if you roam around with people who has taste for going to pubs, automatically you will cultivate the taste for liquor and you will be drinking the best single malt you get. Okay. And if you have taste for good food, you roam around with people who can recommend good restaurants, or you roam around with foodies. So similarly, if you want a spiritual taste, which I say 1% of spiritual taste. So Ramanuja is the propounder of Sri Vaishnavism, and he had a guru called Yamunacharya. So he says that the kind of taste which 1% of taste which you derive from the spiritual source by practicing spirituality, it's 1,000 times better than the sex pleasure which you get. So that is how the spiritual taste is being described in our scriptures. So only when you read and implement, you will experience that taste. So to facilitate that, only we have these retreats or in-person catch-up, so that you can see how people grow spiritually. You can understand how they practice spirituality. So only person who has taste can give you that particular taste. Yes, Pooja. You have a question?
Yes. So can we go back to mantras, please, for a minute?
Yes.
I had a question on mantras.
Yeah,
So
sure.
you mentioned that it's very important to. So you mean do you mean that it's important to only chant mantras, or even hearing mantras
So
is good?
yeah, so any form of, so I sent a video on WhatsApp, right? So any form of sound vibrations, there are auspicious sound vibrations, there are inauspicious sound vibrations. So both are mentioned in the scriptures. So any form of, say for example, when a glass breaks, it's considered to be inauspicious sound vibrations, right? But the breaking of a coconut, the sound produced is supposed to be very, very auspicious. So any form of sound vibrations, auspicious sound vibrations vibrated at a certain frequency, that will give you benefit. So now, whether you want 10% benefit or whether you want 50% benefit or whether you want 90% benefit, that is absolutely your choice. So chanting the mantra loudly, so that when you chant and when you hear it, that will purify your mind at a very, very faster pace. Even hearing also, you will definitely have the benefit. So attending the class live, because you are making an effort to understand, right? So you will have benefit. Now, attending the class in person, you're making higher efforts. So you will have higher benefits. So now attending the class and recording, for whatsoever reason, you will have very less benefit. So that is why we at least recommend one in-person session, so that you can get inspirations. You can talk to different people who are spiritually advanced, and you can get knowledge and wisdom from them, how they practice in their life. Even they also live their life. Even they are also married, or even sometimes they also have boyfriends and girlfriends. But how are they balancing life and spirituality? There are people who do that, and you're not losing anything by doing that. So now that you have all this knowledge, say for example, you have a kid, okay? You say that you're a mom or a dad and you have a kid. Yes, of course, it's your kid, and I love my kid. Fine. I have all this knowledge from Bhagavad Gita, and I can just walk away. Will your kid be happy? Love means exchange of emotions and expressions between two people. So you're just being a hypocrite. If you say that I just love my kid, and if you're not expressing your love to your kid, then there will not be any taste and relationship between you and your kid. Right? So to cultivate the taste, you need to implement what you read. That's the practical application of whatever you read. So you need to cultivate that particular taste. So how do you cultivate that taste? So every religion, every scripture says that, okay, you have to love God. So this is God. The purpose of life is to love God. So can you please someone explain how to love God? That's what Krishna talks in Bhagavad Gita, chapters 7 to 12. And if you want to go more deeper to cultivate a specific type of emotion towards Radha, Krishna, or Vishnu, whatever intricacies involved in the practice of how you perform your Bhakti Yoga. So chapter 7 to 12 talks about Bhakti Yoga. And that deep information you will get only in Vaishnavism, especially only in Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And practical application of that knowledge, you will be able to accept. So right now, people run away when we talk about religion. People run away when we talk about philosophy. The practical application, which is suited for this modern age, that is what Prabhupada has left in 1969 in the form of ISKCON. So ISKCON is here to facilitate that particular requirement for everybody. The practical application. So depending on time, place, and circumstances, we all have to do whatever we got to do. Whether you mean to, you cannot escape from your studies, you cannot escape from your family, you cannot, we all have to do some things when you take up this body. With what intention you do, how you perform it, how smooth can your journey be when you are having the higher realization, that will take you in a very, very long way, in a very, very sustainable way. So every time, the mind is basically, it will try to find distractions. It keeps jumping from one place to another place very, very easily. Even if you have a glass with half 50% of water in it, and I leave you in a room with 10 people, you will see like how much water everybody has in their glass. So your mind does not appreciate what you have. It keeps demanding more and more and more. So by the time you realize that, you will be stuck in an infinite loops. Okay, what am I doing? Right? So your consciousness is contaminated with all of these impressions, because of which your software is not functioning properly, which is causing so many malfunctions in your hardware. Your mind is not functioning properly because the intelligence is not programmed properly. So this is the reality. This is what is happening. And we all understand that we all have had different, everybody would have had different setbacks in life. So nobody can say that my life is 100%. So even if you go and ask somebody who's practicing any form of Vaishnavism from any four sampradayas, even if it's a sannyasi, people who say that I've renounced everything, even they cannot say that, okay, my life is so easy. They will have different type of problems. So how do you stick to the higher purpose, and how do you spiritualize your life with all that information? That's the practical application which we are going to equip you in the retreat. So basically, now that we understand, okay, that we are not this body, we are the soul, right? So now we have to make sure that what we have to do so that we don't take next birth. I mentioned this in the last class. So in order to not take birth again at the time of death. So how painful experience is death? It's explained in Srimad Bhagavatam and a lot of Puranas. It's like 1,000 scorpions breaking you at the same place. That how painful is death, the experience of dying. This is what Vedic scriptures say. So now, at that particular instance, if you should not take the birth, then what you'll have to be doing is you'll have to remember Krishna or Vishnu. Only they can give you liberation. So at the time of death, if you're not able to remember Krishna or Vishnu, then you have to take another birth. Maybe if you have done really, really good, even if you have practiced a lot of bhakti, even if you have done bhakti yoga very, very sincerely as per Krishna's instructions, then you will get a better form of birth where your journey becomes easy in the next life. And there are exceptional cases where you get liberation also. Because in Vamana Purana, Vishnu says that even if you have practiced Bhakti Yoga very, very sincerely, and for whatsoever reason at the time of death, if you're not able to remember him, he will personally remember you and he will deliver you. But those are like exceptional cases, which is mentioned in your Puranas. So there are exceptions also, but do we fall that exception is for like pure devotees, not for people who are contaminated and who have practiced like 50% properly and 50% behind temporary pleasure. So it doesn't work like that. Yes, Kunal, you have a question?
Yeah, sorry, apologies. I joined a bit late.
No
I'm not
worries.
keeping well.
It's okay. Yeah.
So I had a question. When you said, we don't want to take a birth again. So the question I have is, why were we born in first place? Like, why were we born here?
It's a good question. So I spoke about this in the previous class. So we were all in spiritual world at one point in time, right? So we are here because we want to be God. We want to lord over material nature. So we are all sent back here to undergo the training process and fulfill all our desires. And at what pace you fulfill is your personal choice. That's what even Krishna says to Arjuna. Arjuna asks the same question. So he says to Arjuna, you're eternal part and parcel of me. That's what he says to Arjuna. And he gives all this knowledge to Arjuna in 18 chapters. Okay, he first clarifies who he is, what's your identity, what you're doing in this world, why you're bound by time, how the world is created, all the information in the first 6 chapters. Now, what do you got to do to get out of this world? That's in the next 6 chapters. That's the Gita sandwich. The best part of the sandwich is in between. So, and then last 6 chapters, okay, now that you have this knowledge, how to deal with this world, how to live this life, so that after living properly and after dying properly, you can live eternally with Krishna. So that's the process. And after giving all this knowledge, he says, now that you got this knowledge, you decide what you want to do. I will not take your independence away from you. So you're here because you made a choice. You exercised your independence. So now Krishna says, now that you have all this knowledge, up to you. If you want to fight, you fight. That's what Krishna says. So you are here. The fact that you're here is because you made a choice to be away from Krishna. You made a choice to go away from spiritual world and be in this material world. So that's what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Yes, Pooja.
So what you're saying is that all of us, everybody started together. So what I mean to ask is, all of these souls, all of us, right? We were there from the eternal first start of the entire universe.
Yes.
Yes. Now, what I'm kind of confused is that, so let's say we are X billion people right now.
Mm-hmm.
So and this population keeps growing, right?
Yeah.
So,
Good question.
but our population was way lesser when the world started.
Mm-hmm.
So, are the new souls being born? How is this population growing when
So
this?
what Shastra says is souls are eternal. So what we have to understand is more souls are falling. So that's what, like, there are this material world, if you understand Srimad Bhagavatam, so right, if you read the first 40 pages, okay, that's massive information. The first 40 to 60 pages of Srimad Bhagavatam is mind-blowing. So what it says is this entire material universe is just 25% of, it's 1/4 of the spiritual world. Can you imagine how big is the spiritual world? More and more souls people keep dying as well, right? So more souls are taking rebirth. So like we can understand that more souls are making a choice to fulfill their desires. We can see it this way. So this, what Vedic scripture says, this material manifestation is just 1/4 of the entire spiritual manifestation. And we are just in one universe. There are multiple universes like this.
Does this apply for people who are practicing other religions as well?
Absolutely. They are choosing to take a slower path. That's it. So we spoke about this in the previous class, right? You follow 100% Christianity, absolutely no problem. You follow Islam 100%, absolutely no problem. Spirituality is like a ladder. Some people, so accordingly, how you want to worship God, so he reveals accordingly, depending on your purity and your efforts. So if someone says, I am not able to give up meat eating, but I still want to worship you. Okay, fine. He'll give you birth in a proper family or a proper religion where you can practice that and climb the ladder slowly at your own pace. So it's all depending on your endeavor. So scriptures are not logical reasoning. The problem with the modern philosophy, all this Darwinism or all this hedonism, is anything that they state just with logic, people start accepting it. But scriptures are not logical reasoning. Scriptures are revelations by God Himself to pure souls. That's the fundamental which we are missing here. So every religion is the pathway to the same God. Now, whether answers you're getting from that religion, I've given you the 5 questions, right? What is the nature of the soul? Who is God? What's the means to attain? And what are the obstacles you face? And what do you do after reaching the spiritual world? 90% of the religion don't have answer to this question. So any philosophy which is bona fide must have answers about these 5 questions. These 5, I'm not making it up. It comes from a very important shloka in Vedas. It's called as Artha Panchakas. I can give you the reference if you want. So it says that any bona fide philosophy, which is spiritual or religious, whatever you call, it should give answers to these 5 questions. Now, whether you're able to accept that answers is a different story. That is why we have different scriptures. Everything are revelations. And Mahabharata is the oldest, which we all acknowledge, which is 5,000 years ago. And even the age of this earth can be mentioned in Vedic scriptures. And Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, if you read the first few chapters, Krishna says that he is given that knowledge already twice in the past. And just because it got lost in the disciplic succession, he's repeating it again. He's given it to Sun God, Vivaswan. He talks about that. Yes, Pooja.
So my related question was that you keep hearing this in the world that this is a new soul or this is a young soul, right? Sometimes you people say that this is a old soul. Some people are like that, right? So do the scriptures also talk about something about a young soul or an old soul, or is this all Western philosophy?
No, no. So that's scriptures don't talk about that. What Krishna says in the Gita is, before taking human form of life, we have taken millions of birds. There are totally 8.4 million species, and there are 400,000 species in humans as well. So we don't know how many birds you have taken before. So no, in scriptures, nobody says it's a good soul. It's all like modern terminologies according to their understanding. Like Krishna talks like this nowhere in Bhagavad Gita. A soul is a soul.
Yeah. Okay.
So this exactly is what, we need to clean up all these impressions. And as I said, a water which is dirty in a glass, it's negativity. And if you want to clean that, you keep pouring. new water. You keep pouring more positivity and eventually it becomes clean. So you don't have to detach from anything forcefully. The moment you start detaching from anything forcefully, your mind will start revolting. Your mind will always find distraction, which means it is getting attracted to something else. That's the point. Now, to what it is getting attracted, it's absolutely in your hands. It's the choice that you're making. We all have that independence. We all have that free will, which will never be taken away from us. Right? So if you make the right choices, if you choose to put in an effort, so it's called as the afterlife insurance. So if you put in this effort, like this lifetime, you will see benefits in this life also, and maybe in the next life also. It's eternal. So whatever progress, if you take one step towards Krishna, he takes 1,000 steps towards you. Easy things become more easy, difficult things become easy. So when you have so much of work to do in your office, or so much assignments in university, or so many things to do in your home, and if you try to pull out, if you're like really busy, if you try to pull out 30 minutes somehow and maintain that consistency in a spiritual practice, then you will see Krishna reciprocating accordingly. Right? So I gave another example. I'll come to your question, Kunal. So I gave another example. So when you attend via recording, or when you attend via online, or when you attend in person, so it's depending on how much effort you put. It's not that I'm amazing, I'm the same person talking. It's how much Krishna wants to reveal to you through me. That's what you need to understand. So that amount of revelation, or the reciprocation that you will receive, that is directly proportional to your effort and your intention in your heart. Yes, I'll take questions now. Yes, we'll go with Kunal first.
So you said like we have been taking births since time and ages, it's been millions of times and number of times. So I mean, uh, we have a free will, as you said.
Yes,
Yeah. So my question is, where does that free will come from? Usually, it comes from the thoughts we get from our surroundings, right? So
absolutely.
do we usually have control over our thoughts? Because uh, I mean, or are free will and destiny both related? Because when we talk about birth, most of it's predestined, is what I understand. Like we come from like our life is decided by our prarabdha karma.
Yes,
uh, is
right.
my understanding. So if life is predestined by our prarabdha karma, how do we have a free will in first place?
So free will is anybody has the right to make your own choices. You always had the free will with you. Okay. So you always had the free will. No, nobody's stopping you from going away from this classes. You're sitting here is because you want to sit. That's a very common understanding. Okay. So now your question was how to stop the thoughts. So you cannot stop the thoughts. It comes from your impressions. But you can make a choice and decide how you can act. So you cannot stop the thoughts. If anybody says, I want to stop my thoughts, that's what basically psychiatrists do in the form of medications. If you go, but in some cases, really severe, brain anomalies, that point of time, we'll have to take help of modern science, right? To calm the mind. So they'll give some suppressants to suppress your thoughts, but naturally, it's impossible. You can only purify your thoughts. And that's the example of the water and glass I gave you. How you purify your thoughts. First, you have to purify your impressions. The compartment of your consciousness is mind, intelligent, and impressions. So now you have to induce positivity to create positive images, positive impressions. So your mind is like, it captures snapshots of every single thing you do from morning to evening. On top of this, you have news, media, and when you say spirituality, sometimes people make even fun of you. People think, no, what nonsense is all of this? That is how the modern education and the media and everything is corrupted. So when I said a mind becomes eyes to truth, it's all because of the external factors. Even if somebody wants to give you the truth, or even if you want to accept your truth, you get influenced by the impressions, because you attract people in this lifetime depending on what impressions you have accumulated in the past and in this current lifetime. So unless and until that impression is cleaned with more positivity and with more spiritual association in the form of retreats or in the form of going to temple or consistently participating in any form of spiritual activity, that's what, like, we facilitate in any form of spiritual activity. We have like a 5S model. So that's the model which ISKCON education system calls it. So I'll go through that 5S model also in the next session. So that's the practical application. So only when I can tell you a dessert or an ice cream is sweet, how sweet it is for you to taste it. That's the practical application. So the process, we can give you the process to cultivate that taste. So how much effort you're putting, how sincere you are, how much dedicated you are, how much you are able to follow Krishna's instructions. So we will give you also that you can maximize it at any point of time how you want. Okay. So, but the basics is what practically by working or by doing my uni or by maintaining my family or by maintaining my kids, you don't have to leave anything. So the basic things which we will help you with, we will equip you with, that will be given in the next session. And also a strong retreat is basically what you carry that one particular day will last with you for years. So if you have time, make time for that retreat. You can earn money at any point of time. You can job. I have started my career from zero 4 times in my life. But a family, Krishna says, it's a spiritual relationship. So you can not restart family from any point of time. You will have to maintain the family. So in order to maintain yourself, you need spiritual knowledge. So this is the spiritual investment you're doing. A retreat will actually feed you, or any form of spiritual commitment will give you that spiritual stamina for a longer period of time, so that you will be able to experience that particular taste. Yes, Gokul.
So my question is, uh, so everyone will have to face birth and death.
Hmm.
As long as we are so very Krishna conscious, that we will be liberated from this cycle. So if we are born and if we are dead, so every time we will still be carrying the same mind for each and every birth.
Yes, your subtle
Okay.
body, your gross body changes. So this is
Okay.
explained. If you want this concept very much in detail, you can read Srimad Bhagavatam 3rd canto. What happens? What is the journey of the soul when it moves from one body to another body? It is so, so deep. Your same mind and same intelligence is carried forward. To go much
Okay.
more, yeah, if you want to go much more deeper, you can read Srimad Bhagavatam online 3rd canto after chapter 24.
Okay. So is there a point where we will lose this mind?
You cannot lose this mind. You'll always have this mind, only when you change bodies. At that point in time also, what the scripture says is, you will be given a temporary body to experience all the bad karma that you have done. When
Yeah.
someone says, are you out of your mind? When you say, Lou, you cannot get rid of the mind. It's a subtle body. You can be
Yeah.
insane or you can be sane.
Okay. So
Okay.
thing is, so let's say, so the point when we were, so it is said that we are the people that wanted to come to this earth and have a rule over this and all those things.
Yes.
So, so where did that thought come from, in the sense? So is it, would it have
Independence.
been from the mind?
Yeah, it's your independence. Yes, your
So
mind.
mind,
So your
yeah,
mind is the sankalpa and vikalpa. Your mind can do only two things. It can
okay,
either accept or reject.
okay,
You chose to reject. That's it. All
okay,
scriptures say this, Vedic scriptures, your mind can do sankalpa or vikalpa, accept or reject,
okay,
depending on
okay,
what intelligence you had.
okay.
So you felt
So,
this more attractive.
mm, yeah,
So that comes from your free will or your independence.
okay,
That will never be taken away because that's your identity. When we say that, okay, in philosophy, when we discussed in the first two classes, what is the nature of the soul, what is the nature
mm,
of God. So when we saw
mm,
different philosophies, every philosophy will answer, what do you do after reaching God, which means you will maintain your identity, and depending on what the essence of the love that you have cultivated, you behave accordingly in spiritual world in the
mm,
case which you want. So you behave with your friends in one way, you behave with your brothers in one way, you behave with your own brother in one way, you behave with your cousin brother in one way, you behave with your mom in one way, you behave with your your mom's sister relatives in one way. So you have different varieties of love, right? So depending on what is your mood and what is your intention, there are different spiritual worlds. You can go accordingly wherever you want. And the topmost spiritual world is Krishna, where people don't even, it's Goloka Vrindavan, where people don't even realize that he's God, where he's just a cowherd boy. And if you come down, it's Vaikuntha, where you worship Vishnu with, so that's 100% love. And here it's with 75% love and 25% respect, formal, on reverence. So what we talk is Krishna consciousness is love for Krishna.
Sorry, I have
so,
a
sorry for,
Yes.
okay, so if we say that mind is, okay, soul is eternal and mind is non-eternal, it's because mind always keeps changing from one state to other. So,
Yes.
though the mind will still stay with us, it is because the mind keeps changing quite often from minute to
So
minute,
the
which is
mind
why
will
it is
stay
not.
with you. That's correct. And when you go back to spiritual world, Krishna says in Gita that you will never come back and all your memories will be given back to you from all the births. So now that you have accepted me completely, now that all won't be like a problem also, it doesn't matter. So the moment you make your independence, you make your choice, okay, you'll be given your own mind, own intelligence, all the previous memories erased. That's how it
Okay.
goes. Yeah. Yeah. Kunal, you had a question?
yeah. So you said we chose to be here based on our intelligence, but isn't this intelligence given by the Lord Himself?
Yes. And you have the free will also, right? So you have the free will to make your own, people make your own choices. We all make our own choices.
Okay, so
So even when Arjuna was confused, this is what we learned from Gita, right? We don't have to go much more deeper. We have an example. We have Krishna talking to Arjuna in Gita. Even after, that's why I told, even after giving all that knowledge, he said, do what you want. Which means you can still make a choice. There is a particular verse for that. So we don't have to go more deeper. We have an example, we have a real-time scenario where somebody is asking the same question to Krishna. And Krishna gives the knowledge and says, do what you want. So which means he has never taken that independence or free will from you. And he will never take that away from you as well.
okay, so what is the purpose of being in spiritual world?
To serve Krishna.
Okay.
So to enjoy with Krishna. If the word serve is sometimes too heavy, you enjoy and see things in Krishna's perspective. That's what Krishna says in Gita in chapter 7 to 12. What you do there is you see, right now you have the power of humans have the power to discriminate, right? Your mind is not equipoised. There is no equanimity in your vision. So the moment you cultivate that equanimity, the moment you are able to see that, so now the fact that we all are sitting here is not because I am amazing or is not because you want to learn. The way I see it is, People, what Prabhupada, the founder of ISKCON, he says is, people don't come to ISKCON by accident. So the fact I see as this is arranged by Krishna and I'm just being an instrument. So that is Krishna's perspective. It is not that because I want to give a seminar or as I want 30 or 40 followers. So this is how your mind is supposed to work naturally. At the same time, I'm not leaving everything, right? I'm also working. So how do you balance? How do you add Krishna to your life? And depending on how much percentage you want to add and what flavor you want is completely your choice. So that is what we'll be discussing in the next sessions, is practical sessions on how to the process and the significance of the process and what happens in different stages of the process. That will be explained in the next session, and we'll teach you mantra meditation. And in the retreat, we have professional yoga instructors. We will teach you basic yoga, basic meditation, basic breathing exercises, and you will get in touch with a lot of people, like-minded people around. And you can see how you can ask for different stories which might inspire you. And if you think like it will start on 29th March, 9 a.m. until 30th March, 6 p.m. So what we do is every day you have only 1 hour of live classroom sessions. And after that, we'll teach you how to cook vegetarian food if some people are finding it really, really hard, right? And even in proper Sattvic, what Vaishnavism says, this is not an ISKCON thing. That's what people misinterpret, right? What Vaishnavism says is even to avoid even onion and garlic, because they are considered to be in the mode of passion, not on the mode of goodness, right? So mode of passion means it stimulates your mind. It accesses passionate impressions, not good impressions from your impression storehouse. So it's considered as stimulants. So that is why it is important to avoid even onion and garlic to purify your mind. So if you want to keep your mind calm, that is absolutely a different story, or it's a different ball game. Now we are talking about purification of mind. Even modern psychology gives you so many books to read if you want to calm your mind. But they don't acknowledge the presence of soul first. Now that we all understand the presence of soul, we have to nourish our soul. To nourish our soul, we need to purify our mind. It starts from your mind. So that purification process is Bhagavad Gita chapter 7 to 12, which is Bhakti Yoga. So far, whatever we have seen is a summary of the first 6 chapters. The different problems which we cannot escape from in this particular world. It's not constant. The parameters are not constant, and the parameters will keep changing. Now, how are you going to equip yourself to deal with that changes? So basically, if you're working in a company or if you're a software consultant, the software keeps changing, they keep upgrading. And if you're not upgrading your skill set, you will be redundant in your company. So similarly, this retreat or face-to-face sessions is like upskilling yourself. It's like upskilling your knowledge, your spiritual knowledge, which will keep you going for a while. When you practice, you will see the results. And then again, you come back, associate, gain more knowledge, read Bhagavad Gita, follow the practices. So we'll teach you how to make aarti, how to worship Tulsi, what is the significance of Tulsi, and why we give Tulsi beads. All that will be said in the next session. And how to perform aarti. And you'll have a lot of kirtans, and you'll have all music teachers, professional yoga teachers. So it's like a complete house where under one umbrella you have everything. And you can choose what you like in spirituality and take it forward. Not everybody will have the same liking, right? For example, I like reading a lot of books. I like listening to complicated or a lot of Srimad Bhagavatam lectures. Or some people who are like 20 years of spiritual practice, they have not gone beyond Gita. And any question you ask, they'll give practical answers from Gita, scientific answers from Gita, not from any other Puranas or any other scriptures. So, and some people, 25 years, they just like sitting and doing kirtans. They'll take harmonium and sit in front of the deities in the temple and they just play music. And some people like to just be in the kitchen. And some people just like to do garlands. And some people just like washing pots. And they're given a beautiful example. When you wash the pots, the amount of dirt that comes from heavy cooking That is basically the amount of dirt which your mind has. And the easy way to purify is to first clean everything around, and you understand how dirt gets accumulated. And that makes you more humble. So when you take any form of spiritual practice, you get more tolerance, you become more patient, you cultivate a lot more humility. All these type of qualities is what will help you go a long way forward. Now, say for example, I have a wound in my hand, right? If I have a wound here, now if I poke anywhere here, it's not going to pain. If I poke on top of the wound, it will pain. So similarly, when I said that only 10% of the things, what like 10-90 principle, whatever happens versus 10%, when people say something, we get provoked and we choose to react. So if your mind is wounded, then automatically you will react, right? And if I take my finger and poke anywhere else which there is no wound, it's not going to pain. It's not going to hurt me. But when people's words are hurting, which means your mind is wounded because of all those impressions. So we have so much of envy. We have so much of pride. We have so much of lust. Lust means not just lust for man has to woman or woman has to man. That's not what we are talking as lust. Any unfulfilled desire is called as lust. So lust, it gives rises to anger. The moment you're angry, there is a saying called as anger makes you blind. You lose your intelligence. You lose access to your intelligence when you're angry. This is exactly what it means. Your mind makes a choice to be angry. Your senses go out of control, which means your mind is becoming a subservient to your intelligence. Your intelligence should be superior to your mind. Your mind should not dominate your intelligence. The mind should always be subservient. So when you become angry, your intelligence is becoming subservient to your mind. Correction. When you become angry, your intelligence is becoming subservient to your mind. Your intelligence should always be superior. Your mind cannot dominate. So who is powerful? Is the elephant Mahout who's sitting on top with a needle, or the elephant with the sharp needle? The intelligence. That's the intelligence. That's the job of the intelligence. Yes, Kunal.
You said sorry, actually I forgot what I was
No
gonna
worries.
ask.
Yeah.
You said um,
Your mind should be subservient to intelligence. That's what I was talking, the crux of what I was talking.
yeah. So what I was going to ask is, um, I think I just forgot what I was going to ask. Sorry.
That's okay. You can text me whenever it comes back to
Yeah,
your mind.
sure.
Yeah, that's okay. That's the state of mind we are talking about, guys. We forget things so easily. That's another drawback. So yeah, so these are all, the important. So we understood how mind functions, how mind distracts and get attracted to something else. Now, how are we going to channelize, right? That's what we are going to learn from, especially in the next session. So
I
next,
actually remember now. Sorry.
yes,
So you said about the lust. So
yes,
if the lust is not fulfilled, you that
yes,
turns into angry. You start becoming angry, and that affects your intelligence.
yes.
Is it practically possible to live the life without any desire when it comes
No,
to practicality?
no, not possible. That's why I don't agree with Buddhism. It's not possible. That's what Bhagavad Gita's teachings are beautiful, right? You have positive desires. So we will teach how to cultivate good desires. Krishna's perspective. It's not possible to live without any desires. If anybody is saying, you kill all your desires, it's technically not possible. I would personally say it's bogus philosophy. I don't care where it comes from. Because that's not what Krishna says in Gita. Krishna says, you attach to positive things and validate your desires, right? So the fact that I am sitting here is not, the way I understand this, like it will make my guru happy if I take somebody one step closer to Krishna. That's my desire. I definitely do have a desire. I would like all of you to grow spiritually. Be enthusiastic, ask more questions. That's my desire. So you can't say that's a bad desire, right? Any desire that you have, which will take you a step closer to Krishna, that is how we will have to cultivate thoughts. That is how we'll have to boost impressions. And we facilitate all of that. Yes, Pooja.
So I have two questions. First question, going back to the question on mantras. Nowadays, and I was asking you whether listening to mantras is also good.
Mhm.
Nowadays on the internet, you have so much variety of mantras,
Yes.
but at the same time, you're not very sure
Mhm.
that which of those audios or videos are the right,
Yes.
the right chanting
Absolutely.
of mantras, right
Yes.
frequency. So is it something that is gone, or do you have links to that? These are the ones which
Yes.
can be heard or listened to.
Yeah, I got your question. So basically, I told this in the first minute of the first class. Like, a lot of people, they get up in the morning and they chant Om at 4:30. Yes, the scripture says early morning is the best time, the Brahma Muhurta, before 1 or 2 hours before sunset. That's the best time where your body can absorb positivity from the cosmos. Okay, it can absorb a lot of cosmic energy or a lot of positivity. This comes from scriptures. That is why if you see the habits of people who are getting up early, right? If you see all Steve Jobs or Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg, any geek or anybody who's successful, they will be early morning risers. They'll get up, they know I can get this things done. Your body charges in like a fast charge or in a supercharged way, like how a Tesla car charges. So now, what mantra you chant? I mentioned the first class, first minute. We took a breathing, 3 times breathe in and breathe out, and we chanted Om. So Krishna says in the word Omkara, the first syllable Om is him. He says this in Gita. There is a verse in Gita. At the same time, I also mentioned that to chant Om, as per scriptures, there are a lot of restrictions and regulations. Om is like Wi-Fi with password. But this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, it comes from Kali Santarana Upanishad. So especially for this modern age, where irregularity in dharma is decreasing, people tend to cheat each others. So the best prescribed mantra is the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. There are no regulations. You can chant anywhere, any time of the day, whatever state you are in. Just all the mantras will carry benefits, and you can chant and you can hear, but how much you will realize or how much you will gain out of it, depending on the rules and regulations that you follow from the Vedic injunctions for that particular mantra. That's the catch which it comes in. Yes, they all have their own benefits, but are we able to follow? We are not even able to go to temple once a week. We are not even able to do one puja a day. We are not even able to do one arati a day. So what is practically feasible for us is what we care about, right? So this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, it's called as the Maha Mantra. The word mantra itself has a lot of significance. When it says Maha Mantra, it comes from the Kali Santarana Upanishad, where there are like when the universe is created, right? Like this earth is like few billions of years old, right? And there are like different yugas that I'll be covering in my 5th session, like a bit on creation and what is the current age of this particular universe, everything. So in the olden days, there are different ways of meditation. This also I'll cover in my 5th session. There are, meditation you can, so lifespan, say for example, when Ramayana happened, there is Dasharatha, right? When Ramayana happened, Dasharath was 80,000 years old. Can you believe? So human lifespan keeps degrading as we go through the 4 yugas. After creation, there is Satya Yuga, there is Treta Yuga, there is Dwapar Yuga, and there is Kali Yuga. The principles of dharma keeps decreasing. Truth keeps decreasing. Irreligion keeps increasing. Human lifespan keeps decreasing. So that's why when we say just stick with Gita, if you have time and if you have lot of knowledge that you have gained from your childhood, people start learning Vedas from age 7. Age 7 to 11 is when your consciousness can be nurtured the best. You will not get conditioned. So that is the time when people actually start reading Vedas and they have a proper bona fide acharyas. Now we don't have that much amount of time. So whatever time we have, we'll have to make use of it properly and we need to reap the maximum benefits. So that is the process which we are saying, and the process is a simple process which will suit the modern age. Especially the modern age is called as Kali Yuga, where the human lifespan is so less. Now, if we start reading Vedas and Upanishads and Sanskrit and this, that, the ultimate conclusions, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15.50, this is my favorite shloka, Vedescha sarve aham eva vedyo. The purpose of Vedas is to understand me. I am the compiler of all the Vedas. Very simple. I don't want that. I'll just follow Krishna's instruction in Gita, chapter 7 to 12. So, to answer your question, yes, every mantra has benefits. It's always good to keep spiritual vibrations around you. So, say for example, in South India, there is a culture that every morning we play Suprabhatam, right? Down south. So, which is supposed to invoke auspiciousness, to wake up the Lord. That's what they play in Vaikunta. That's what they say. And every evening we play Vishnu Sahasranam, which glorifies all forms of Vishnu, especially around sunset. That is one form of glorification. So when you are struggling from fear, like you're afraid of fear, you play the Narashinga Kavach. So every mantra has its own power. So there are certain mantras or certain songs which you can hear irrespective of anything, but there are certain mantras that you have to chant with rules and regulations. So especially for chanting, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is very, very simple because it's given by Krishna himself and it comes from the conclusion of most of the Upanishads, and it's also mentioned explicitly in the Kali Santarana Upanishad. That's where this mantra has been taken from. And in this age of Kali, only chanting the glories of Vishnu or Krishna is the best for purification of your mind.
Thank you.
And Krishna says, everything emanates from me in Gita. And that's why we chant Krishna's name directly. Yes, Gokul.
So that we cannot live without desires, and it is told that we have to attach ourselves to positive things. So even attachment to positive thing, doesn't it account for a karma, good karma?
Intention
And
matters.
won't okay.
Your intention. Right. Now you can get attached to your kid. Of course.
Yeah,
But why are you getting attached to your kid? The intention.
there's
Yeah.
okay.
So the intention is I get attached to my kid because I want to take my kid a step closer to Krishna. That's the right understanding. That's chapter 15 of Bhagavad Gita. So your
Yeah.
intention, it's not that because this is my kid, this kid will take care of me after, when I'm 50 years old or 60 years old, I need some support. So I need to educate my kid because, this kid will make more money and I can retire easily. So those type of thoughts will lead to karma. But human life is meant for taking responsibility. This is what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 18th chapter. So when you take the correct understanding of having a kid is, now I take, okay, Krishna, I'm so happy you have given me a companionship throughout life. Now I take responsibility of nurturing Bhakti in another soul, which is my wife. Okay. And now I also take responsibility, right? Not everybody will be able to come to temple every day. So we all have a progressive journey for fulfilling our desires. Some people can just drop everything and just go become monk. But some people cannot do that. So they get married and they just take another path. So every path is you can go to Krishna. Okay, you take it slowly and you take the responsibility of another soul, which is your wife. And you also, once you both are at the same platform, okay, then you invoke another soul. Take blessings. That's what Vedic mantras, like there are like a lot of different things which you actually have to perform when you plan for a kid. So you invoke another soul so that you can give or facilitate an opportunity for that soul to go to Krishna. There are so many souls falling. So this is the right understanding. So the attachment, where the intention is, what the intention is, that's what matters. So your intention keeps you bound in this material world. That is what that generates karma. Okay. That is something which you have to understand. Yes, Kunal, you had a question?
Yes. I remember you had talked about not having desires. That's what Buddhism philosophy talks about.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean,
but
that's how I understood it. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what people who practice. When I went to McLeodganj back in 2017, I even met Dalai Lama there. Like, they all say we have no desires. We killed all our desires. That's exactly what some of the monks were practicing there. They said, maybe I met the immature ones, but that's how I understood that. Because you cannot stop your thoughts from coming. That's basic human science. You cannot stop your thoughts. At the same time, you should realize that you're not your thoughts. Your
so,
identity part, you're the soul. Yes. So what's your question?
so my question was that Buddhism came from Lord Buddha, as we understand,
Yes,
and my understanding is Lord Buddha was one of the avatar of
absolutely.
Vishnu.
So Lord Buddha had a specific purpose. So it's a very good question. So why Lord Buddha has come is he had a specific purpose to stop animal sacrifices. So there are like a lot of places in Vedas where it says that you can actually sacrifice animals, but people have fragmental thought process. Okay, so they sacrifice animals for their own benefit, but they don't contextualize it. So they read one portion. The most problem is we understand only one half of the story. So when Hanuman burnt Lanka, everybody started burning, like blaming Hanuman. Like after reading it, some people say that, what if Sita would have been burnt during that process? That's the problem by knowing one half of the story. Little knowledge is dangerous. So the other half of the story says that there is no clue how much Hanuman regretted. He came to the Nilachal mountain in Purushottam Kshetra and he dipped his tail there, and there was no clue how much he regretted for doing that activity. Just a second, I'll charge my laptop. Yeah, so to answer your question, Buddha's purpose was to stop animal sacrifices. During when Buddha's incarnation came, right? Like temple walls were filled with blood. People were sacrificing animals left, right, and center. So Buddha had a very specific purpose to stop animal sacrifices. Okay, that was every incarnation will have a purpose. Okay, so when Buddha came, his motive was to stop animal sacrifices. Okay, he went to people, right? Okay, fine. Now you are basing everything on the Vedas, reject the Vedas. He rejected the Vedas. That is how Buddhism came into existence. So when you have a lot of bushfire, right? And after bushfire, so this is very important. If you understand this, your life will change. Okay, so pay attention. So when you have a land, like, and you have like so much of you want to build something new there, but the land is completely not fertile, like imperfect or junk objects. You will first have to clean the land. Like barren trees, burnt trees of bushfire. Now I want to cultivate a monument on that particular land. I want to cultivate a Taj Mahal. Okay, so now first what you will do, you'll have to come and clean that particular land. That is what Buddha had done. And now, right, there is complete atheism. There is no God, rejected Vedas. Buddha did this. Now, there is a conversation in Padma Puran. Vishnu talks to Shiva. He says, you are personification of the mode of ignorance. He is a guna avatar. Okay. So now there is people are completely ignorant. So now go, we have to build a foundation for religion. It was Shiva who has incarnated as Shankaracharya. So how do you identify your guru? By seeing him, by talking to him, by saying that I'm able to connect with him. He's close to my heart. He understands my heart. But you know how Shankaracharya identifies his guru? Just by seeing his feet. Just by seeing his padukas. That elevated personality, that is the personality of Lord Shiva we are talking about. And he was a Vaishnava worshipping Vishnu. Vaishnavanam Yata Sambhu. That's how we call Shiva. It's there in Srimad Bhagavatam. The topmost worshipper of Vishnu. So Vishnu has a conversation with Shiva, and in the same Padma Puran, it's also mentioned that Shiva will incarnate as Shankaracharya to establish religion. So now the land is clean. He comes and puts 4 pillars on that particular land. But just with pillar, you cannot live under pillars. In the same Padma Puran, it's also mentioned that people will get confused because of his philosophy, because it will not be fully packed. And anybody who follows that philosophy will be doomed, is also mentioned. But at the same time, Shankaracharya is not to be blamed. He answers all the principles of Vaishnavism, all the 5 points. So Shankaracharya's philosophy is also Vaishnavism. But why it is not considered to be bona fide is because it has been diluted a lot by his disciples after Shankaracharya left. So let's not go deeper that, because that's very controversial. At the time of death, some people, they made like drastic comments. So that's why now the philosophy is a lot of diluted, his teachings are misunderstood. So now what happened after that? You have a land and you have 4 pillars, right? Then comes Ramanuja, Sri Vaishnavism. We spoke about the 4 sampradayas. Ramanuja came and he established 2 slabs and made it look like a home where people can take shelter. That is the starting of Vaishnavism. That's called Ramanuja Sampradaya. And then the building kept on, people kept fine-tuning. Then come Madhvacharya, he beautified the building. And then comes Vishnu Swami from Rudra Sampradaya. Madhvacharya is from Brahma Sampradaya. And Vishnu Swami is from Rudra Sampradaya. He again glorifies the building, like a lot of artworks inside. And then comes Nimbarka, Kumara Sampradaya, the 4 Kumaras, the 4th Sampradaya which you're talking about. And then Lord Chaitanya, 500 years back, he comes and puts a dome on top, completes the building. So that is how Vaishnavism has progressed. So it doesn't mean any form of Vaishnavism is wrong, but what is complete, what is more practical, what people are following more, because the subject matter is clearly understood. So when a building has 2 slabs, how will it look like? When a building is beautified, how will it look like? When the building is, a lot of artwork, how will it look like? So everything has a common purpose. So some people find purpose there. Some people find purpose here. Some people find this easy to understand. Some people find this easy to understand. But this is how religion or Vaishnavism has been progressive from the time of Buddha. Does this give you a proper understanding or perspective?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Any questions? Any other questions from anybody? Any questions? So next session, as I said, it will be in person. So try to make time for your afterlife insurance, as we say. So it'll be beneficial. So I attended one retreat like that from His Holiness Devamrita Swami 3 years back, and the retreat changed my life. And in-person sessions with my mentors in the temple or the head priest in the temple, I had a 1-hour session, and that was a lot of knowledge, which gives me a lot of spiritual uplift, which helped me upskill. So it will be an in-person practical session where we will tell you the process, how to practice this process, and then more intricacies of the process will be explained in the retreat. So we have like very few registrations left, I think 6 or 7 spots left. So go ahead if you are interested, or try to make some time, be part of the retreat, get to know more people, and friendships or companionship is what will keep you go longer in this life. Whether it's your material life or spiritual life, whatever life, office, marriage, everything ultimately boils down to companionship or friendship. And when you choose the right people with the right mindset of the right frequency, That is all this retreat is for, because everybody cannot mingle with everybody. You will have a certain mindset, and some people will have a different upbringing. So you will see different like-minded people, even if you have one person. I'm happy all of you any days, anytime you can just text me. You can always come and meet me in North Sydney. I'll be around. But you will need always, some person. When you have that desire, Krishna will put you in touch with a person who can uplift you. Okay. And fourth session will be a practical session so that we get maximum out of the session. Next Saturday starts at 4:30 p.m. And fifth and sixth session, we will talk about the different, a little bit of the universe creation. What are the different personalities involved? So right now we have been talking only from a prime minister's perspective. So now we will understand what defense minister is doing, what the chief minister is doing, what is their role, what is their position, and what is the railways minister doing. So basically all that we will see different demigods and our perspective of the universe and how the universe was created a little bit for 20-30 minutes. And as Pooja was asking, different type of yogic practices and meditations, Krishna talks about different form of yoga. And then finally in the first 6 chapters, and then finally he says why Bhakti yoga becomes a lot more easier, 7 to 12 for this modern day. But we will give a knowledge of all of that different practices. And then the final session will carry concepts of practical spirituality. And then you have the retreat. All right, guys. So if no other questions, so we will conclude the session here. Thank you all. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop me a personal message, or if you want, you can put it on the group. Absolutely up to you. Or if you want, you can text me separately. Or if any of you want to talk to me anytime, just text me. We'll just block some time. We'll have conversations. Or if anybody wants to meet me, we can always meet in the temple. We can block some time. Okay. So any questions on the philosophy? Because once you have all this knowledge, only thing that will help you purify your mind is taking some form of spiritual commitment. So remember what I said, we cannot keep telling, I love my kid and I love my kid and not doing anything. You have to express. So how you express, you understand your identity, you understand who is God. Now, how you express is through taking any spiritual commitment. And it starts from chanting, because chanting helps you purify your mind. And only if your mind is getting purified, you can sustain in any spiritual practice. Chanting is a form of meditation. It's called as mantra meditation. And we will teach what is mantra meditation, and we will speak more in the next session. All right, stay tuned. All right, Hare Krishna, everyone. We
Hare
will see you
Hare
in
Krishna.
180
Thank you.
4:30 p.m. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.